November 15th, 2025. Well, we've gotten through the shutdown, and I guess the government is reopened, and step by step, I guess we'll eventually get the airline traffic back. We can get the air traffic controllers, the TSA workers back, and get everything, the various benefits flowing out, and contractors being paid. Remember, this will affect things like defense contracts and all that sort of thing. So we're gotten through all that, but now we're running into a lot of big Democrat BS. So now they're bringing up this Epstein garbage again, which is kind of interesting. Although one could argue, why this mess would have been used so much by the Trump campaign during the election if they hadn't thought through what might happen afterwards. But as it is right now, I guess the bunch of things have come out, and they basically, none of them really implicate Trump in anything particularly wrong, of course. In fact, if anything, one of them even suggests that Epstein thinks that Trump is the one that turned him into the FBI. so and that may well have been after the issue of the lady in question that was hired out of Mar-a-Lago and brought into the Epstein world with Prince Randy Andy of the UK and so forth, now ex-prince. But anyhow, this is being thrown around for the moment, and I guess now Trump has responded, and he's going to launch an investigation of all the Democrats that were involved with Epstein and other institutions, which is much more extensive than anything to do with Trump, and we don't know whether they really have any implication in terms of the abuse of underage girls or not, but they may have. They may not. I don't know, but they definitely were involved with them financially and so forth. In fact, my general attitude on this whole thing, as you think about it, is that somebody like Trump, who runs these sort of clubs, golf clubs, and stuff like that, is a very social individual and therefore brushes up with a lot of public figures, And that doesn't mean he's really, truly, and they could have a relationship of sorts that might even involve a few business transactions or whatever. That doesn't mean they're really bosom buddies and know everything about each other. It just means that people in the social world meet a lot of people and associate with lots of people. After all, Hillary Clinton was photographed with Jeffrey Dahmer. So, that doesn't necessarily mean that she knew anything about what he was doing, right? Not to defend Hillary, but just to point out that it cuts both ways. So anyhow, I guess we'll be in for more of this BS. Meanwhile, the main thing I keep hearing about this all is this cost of living problem and the cost of food. And I don't know, has food all of a sudden become ultra expensive? I haven't noticed that. I think it has crept up a little bit in some areas I can think of. Probably not more than during COVID, but I can think of some items that kind of fluctuated down and then back up or something. So at any rate, there's going to be a focus, I think, on the administration's part to see if they can do some things to lower food prices, although it may annoy some of the domestic food producers. Any way you go on that, it kind of causes somebody's is not going to like it, let's say. But at any rate, we'll have to see where we go with that. But if you like these videos, please give me a like, subscribe, and click the bell for notifications, and or you can follow me on Rumble. So yeah, which is the address and description below. So anyhow, you can see that that's kind of where things are going. I personally think that it seems like the Republicans are taking this particular, these two defeats as having some great significance. To me, these are both defeats in Democrat states, and with the Republicans having taken off, the natural tendency, I think, our politics is to a great extent, is reactionary. You have a group of solid people who will vote Republican, a group of solid people who will vote Democrat. You have a group of people independent who basically are just reacting to what they don't like at the moment. So whatever's in, they don't like. So it is a problem in the upcoming election, and I think it is important to counter Democrat propaganda, but apparently, but I think the last set of elections don't necessarily show a lot. The other thing is the growing, these so-called socialist or neo-Marxist victories will probably lead to some major mismanagement in these cities, such as New York and Seattle, and therefore will probably lead to examples that should be usable by Republicans in the future campaigns. I mean, one could expect that crime will go up in these areas, at least insofar as Trump doesn't intervene and bring it down. He has to be careful there, you know. As he solves problems, remember, his key issues go away. But anyway, so that's kind of the situation we have with that. I do think there will be enough chaos and failure in these programs and these you know cities that probably there'll be useful examples to be used in future campaigns. And because, like I said, that's the main thing above all else, though, is to focus on not losing the Senate in the off-year elections. The House is problematic, as I pointed out before, but the Senate is one you absolutely have to retain control of in order to get your appointments through. And of course, even and the problem is that some of the people that there may not be too supportive. I guess Tillis is going to not run, and that leads us up to some problems in North Carolina unless we can get a good candidate, because you have a governor that's managed to win twice, and so on the Democrat side, and that's a problem you're going to have, and we're going to have. On the other hand, there's a chance we might win back, say, New Hampshire, for instance, and Georgia. So it may just be a question of which states are in play and which ones aren't, and so forth. So anyhow, that we're still focusing on this situation now that's going on with Venezuela, and we're not sure exactly how far this is going to go. A lot of people are really kind of upset about the on the Democrat side particularly, and the international community, about the attacks on the drug boats. However, I'm kind of interested to see that we've been doing similar attacks on terrorists everywhere, and after all, we've declared these to be narco-terrorists because they're bringing in very dangerous chemicals such as fentanyl, which have led to a disproportionate number of overdose deaths. So, including and such things as the George Floyd riots too, right? Which, if he hadn't have died of fentanyl, he probably wouldn't have. It wouldn't have been blamed on the police, and probably a lot of damage wouldn't have been done. So, that's the kind of thing that we're using as a idea that these are, quote, narco terrorists, and therefore are open to the same kind of measures that were used for other kind of terrorists. At any rate, so that we'll see how that goes. I mean, let's put it this way: it looks like that Trump has turned the war on drugs into an actual war, and we'll see how far the thing goes. I still doubt he's going to actually invade Venezuela. We'll see. I guess there could be some airstrikes, and I guess maybe even some kind of irregular combat operations, kind of special forces kind of things to raid certain targets. I guess that's conceivable, but the danger in that is that even something as weak as the Venezuelan military could end up having the effect of capturing a few American troops, killing a few American troops, or bringing down an aircraft like a helicopter or something with one of these shoulder-launched missiles. Something of that sort could happen and would cause us political problems. On the other hand, as long as they're just interdicting boats at sea, I would think they would kind of quit coming at sea. I mean, lay low at least until this all goes away. And maybe Maduro goes away, it goes away too. That's the other issue. So that's kind of how that's going. And I think there's still some confusion about Trump's comment about nuclear testing, which was apparently a reaction that was made when the Berezhnik and that Poseidon torpedo were announced to have been tested and I guess being available eventually to enter the Russian inventory. Although it's unclear that what is meant, but even at this point, I don't think that what the real U.S. intentions are have been very clear. Are they really talking about full up, like nuclear weapon explosions underground like we were doing up through 1992? Are we talking about certainly we are testing our military systems, our ballistic missiles, Minuteman and the Trident II, and of course the upcoming Sentinel missile. Once it's ready, which should be ready for testing, I believe, next year. Um, and so that will, that sort of testing we're going to do anyhow. And so there seems to be no need for a presidential announcement. Beyond that, it's unclear exactly what the motivation is. Has allegedly been some State Department studies that have led us to think that some countries might be engaged in some kind of very low level testing, uh, and have been doing it in a way in which it's harder to verify. But maybe we've had some hints of that sort of thing. I'm not sure which countries that would be either. Um, if it's Russia and China, I guess it's conceivable that they might be able to test primaries in some way that would actually violate the comprehensive test ban rules, but evade detection. The primary is the lower yield fission bomb that's used to detonate a thermonuclear device, and I guess there's various modes. I mean, there's also a concept called a zero yield test, which is, I think, based on, as near as I understand it, based on using a system where there's not an actual nuclear explosion, but you do test the implosion device and perhaps use rapid frame X-rays, photographs of the process to verify that it achieved the necessary confinement, that sort of thing. That's my understanding of that subject. If I'm wrong, well, if anybody can clarify, please post something, I guess. But I think I'm right about that, what that would entail. And so, at any rate, that could be what's going on, but I think it's conceivable. I don't know. We may or may not have been doing those anyhow, and that may be what he's talking about. The Russians have taken it rather seriously as usual. Remember, the Russians may have the model that just because we're paranoid doesn't mean you're not out to get us. That's kind of so. I'm really skeptical we're really going to go up to full yield testing or even up to the threshold test ban limit of 150 kilotons, which was I think the last treaty I think that we actually did ratify. We never really ratified comprehensive. I think we signed it but didn't ratify it. So, but we've agreed to obey it as long as everybody else does. So anyway, that's something yet to be identified. So anyway, that's kind of it. The war in Ukraine drags on as usual. And now it looks like that Zelensky has got himself into a lot of problems with corruption. And a couple of his key retainers apparently are being investigated by this anti-corruption organization that Zelensky tried to eliminate about a couple of months ago, but because of popular protests and international pressure, had to reverse himself. Well, now they've gone after a couple of his supporters, and as we refer to as oligarchs. So, at any rate, and that's caused a bit of consternation. And the general perception is that he himself has profited a lot by money being skimmed off the foreign aid. So, we'll see how that develops. But if that is something to keep an eye on, I guess. So that's about it for this time. I'll be posting this on YouTube and Rumble as always, and the address of my social media accounts are in the description below. So all for now.